Thanks for tuning in. We're Ace Comicals. I have with me my co-host Rahul Jani and Leon Everett. I'm Greg Driver. Let's get started. Hello everyone. It's January. It's winter. It's cold, but don't be sad because there's still comics. Yes, we're here to warm you up like a fire in an oil drum. So gather round and welcome to Ace Comicals episode number 27. We've had our 2017 retrospective, so it's time to stop looking backwards and let's dive right into our new reads in 2018 with our usual suspects, Leon and Rahul.
Hey Greg, good evening.
Yeah.
Hi guys, good evening. So, straight in with X-Men Grand Designs number 2. So we talked about this in our retrospective episode, and we basically turned that into a kind of a review because it sort of went on a little bit, didn't it?
Yeah, we couldn't stop gushing about it because it is just that good. But now Leon's caught up, right?
Well, I've read the first. I haven't got around to reading the second yet, but I'm deep in and going to read that in a bit.
Yeah, so I've read the second one now, so I'm ready to talk about number 2 a little bit and carry on talking about the same kinds of things basically that we were talking about when we mentioned the first issue, because it is such a great comic series and such a feat as well to condense so much information into such a short space comics wise, I think.
And not just in a short space, but like in a really economic way, where all the information comes across in like new and clever and interesting deliveries. And I think that's the thing I really liked about it.
Do you think we can sort of talk about the plot device and how he's managed to do that yet?
Actually, that's one of the things that I wanted to elaborate on, because I don't know if we talked about it that much in the previous episode, but I like that the framing device is about one of these watchers being chased for like an overdue summary of Earth's mutants, and then he succinctly states that what he's learned over several millennia is that it's necessary for events to unfold and settle before transcribing what he witnessed. I think that's nice. Like you can't just rattle it off the cuff as it's happening. You have to sit and watch for a couple of thousand years and then tell everybody what's going on.
Yeah, and it's useful to have like a comprehension of how the story ends to be able to get a good idea on like the overview on how the beginning and the middle ties into it. So I can see his methodology. Yeah,
I mean, this, again, as you can imagine, with issue 2, it continues in the same vein as number 1. I think this is a great way, actually, to introduce somebody to X-Men comics, and it is a fantastic retrospective, if I can get my words out. It covers different creators, different costume designs, different key events in the X-Men timeline, and like for old fans, there's something there for old fans as well as there being something there for new people. Like if you're just introducing someone to X-Men, say they've just watched a couple of the movies, and you're like, oh, dude, instead of just like throwing different trades at them and saying, oh, you need to read this one. Oh, you need to read this one because this has this happening and whatever else. And this throwing this confusion at them, you've now got a nice way to sort of prime people. I quite like.
And one of the things that I admire about this book is that it picks up on things that haven't really been well expressed by... I don't know so much about the latest comics because I haven't read many of them, but certainly the films. So little touches like Xavier's personality, which we do get a bit more of in the like New Class and Days of Future Past and whatever. But we get an Xavier who's like globally altruistic, but personally quite selfish. And I've not really read that side of him before.
Yeah, no, it's very unique in the way that it kind of brings that out, and it's like as well as being an overview of the timeline and an overview of the various arcs and stories and everything else. It's actually an overview of the way the characters develop as well, and it does that very well, which I think is what you're trying to get at there with the Xavier stuff. Like we actually get like an overview of the way these characters change as the stories go along, and it's not just Cyclops did this and then he went there and did that and then this happened and that gave way to this. It's actually like the evolution of their personalities as well.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I find that, like you, Rahul, you're saying, it's very economical, and it jumps from event and time period to event and time period in a really quick way that doesn't really feel like you're missing too much. It's like a really good sort of documentary montage type thing of the touchstones or the big turning points in a lot of these characters' lives. And I think that it is a Herculean task that Ed Piskor's managed to do with this. I'm starting to think he's a mutant in the way that he's like this near encyclopedia level knowledge of all these different arcs and runs, and just molding it into this like ultimate retcon in a way where it touches on a lot of classic storylines, but also streamlines a bunch and like pushes certain things together and uses other things in place of others where it is more of a straight line and through point. So yeah, it's very interesting and compelling take on mutant history, and it boggles my mind how well it works, really, because it could just like come off flat. Like the throwback art style, color usage, and panel compositions don't just feel like a cheap gimmick or throwback, which is things that you guys touched on in the last episode, but I feel like all of it serves the narrative, like the form and the function, and it feels like it's nostalgic but not soulless in a similar way to last year's game Cuphead, which has the style of like old Flesher cartoons. And with that, it could just be this cheap, hey, look, we got this like cool old-timey art design, but actually it really feels like it feeds into the general point of the whole work. So I do quite like that.
It's a great feat to summarize everything so clearly and concisely without losing too much detail. And the artwork, it's the way that he manages to capture the different aesthetics as the comics move along and through the different timelines and things like that. The way he manages to capture the different character designs and the changes in creative teams as he moves through the timeline, and it again, you know, in keeping with this this retro style that still feels very fresh and very new, very bold and very colourful, very vibrant colours, very clean and graphic looking, which I really like about it. Yeah, 100%. He's doing a great thing here as Ed Piskor. It is all Ed Piskor, by the way. It's a one-man band, this thing. So, yeah, there you go.
I guess it's like a one-man band who's he's doing like a big triple album of like greatest hits of like a cover album type thing. But yeah, what he's managing to do is just obscene. I'm not sure how he's getting it all done. I did have like just some extra notes on like the first issue, as I had not read it last episode. Yeah. I think the additional reading list at the end by Darren Jensen and Jeff York is really cool. Like, it's nice, concise endnote style reference list, which I don't know. I found it to be quite useful, because I always find in a lot of these comics you'd get like editor's note back in issue 42, and it's like, that's not really helpful. But I like that something as widespan covering as this it's nice to have all these touch points and be like, yeah, in 1943 in this issue, this was covered, and it's like, so it feeds more into the history, which I quite enjoyed.
Yeah, it feels a little like a technical document in that way. I like how every single page is broken down to what reference is taken and from where. I like, as someone who again has never read any of these old ones, to know that he has actually dived in and has these citations, that's well impressive.
It's impressive, yeah, because it means he must have read all of it, and that is impressive. So, yeah, there we go.
Just before we move on, I've got one more thing to say though.
Yep.
And bear in mind, I've not read issue 2 yet, but something might be touched on there. But I guess it's more of a general question that I'm not sure if I want answered. But I thought that one possible issue with the framing, and this happens right at the beginning, so it's not really a spoiler, I hope anyway, but I don't think so, because it's something that's happened in comic book lore and this, and it's just been fed into this as an inciting incident in a way. But like, I'm in two minds about the Namor New York incident being the focal point for like modern mutant hatred, because on one hand it works in sort of a 9/11 lens where a terrorist attack on New York City leads to the demonization of a group for generations, and I understand that. And it also feeds a good function in explaining why people fear and hate Magneto and Professor X and Wolverine and Cyclops, but don't fear and hate Spider-Man and the Human Torch. Like, it does feed... It fully delineates between freaks and superheroes. But on the other hand, it eats... I feel like a bit of it eats away at the central metaphor of like mutants as a persecuted other, because it gives this like original sin. So whereas like in other tellings of this story, whichever medium they've been in, it has been framed as a battle for civil rights and people hating these people because they're freaks, and not because way back when one of them committed a big terrorist attack. So I understand what he's trying to do, but I need to see further on how that's fed in terms of when they hit more modern stories, how the central prejudice against them is handled. Because if it, like, I think it's interesting to do it that way, the 9/11 way, but I feel like in some ways it could limit and reduce the story to they've got a bigoted reason, but it's still a reason, instead of the whole we fear what we don't understand thing, which is, I guess, historically was something that I picked up a lot on with X-Men comics. So it's not really a knock, but it's amusing that I've had with that particular story arc.
I do, yeah, I can sympathize with that, because I had similar feelings when reading it, that it doesn't... I was expecting it to be an exhaustive retrospective and like a encyclopedic collection of all the stories, but it's not, because, like you said, it frames it in this very specific way, with Namor being the inciting incident. And so in that way, it's not an exhaustive compendium of all of the stories. It's a retcon for today's, like, a post-2000 type mentality. So it's, in that way, it's going to be very of our current time, and it's not going to track forward, I think, which I sort of expressed in the past episode. But yeah, you touch on that, and it's something that didn't sit that comfortably with me either.
Yeah, I do see that, actually. I can see that. I can see that is it, like the very modern framing of it and everything else.
Well, because it's anachronistic. There's like an anachronistic dissonance with the art style, but then the plot framing that it has. And again, like Leon said, it's not really a knock against it. It's just it's just something to think about, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Right. So we're going to move on to the second one now, which is something that I read, and I don't know if you guys are following this. I know Leon got the first issue because it came with an IDW bundle way back when. It is Diablo House number 3, which I've been waiting for, and it's finally here. And I'm glad it's finally here because I have been waiting a long time for this. It's like an anthology style book, and each book is an individual story surrounding a house which has the power to grant wishes, but it grants wishes in return for your soul. Basically, is the whole gist of it, and it's kind of a Tales from the Crypt style format where you get an introduction to the story from the sort of keeper of the crypt, or in this case the surfer dude that is tasked with keeping the house. And with this one we are given a tale that takes place across I'm guessing 2 decades, the 40s and the 50s, maybe even into the early 60s, and it's about the San Diego racing scene. The gist of it is that the guy's dad, like racing's in his blood, and his father dies on the racetrack, and he becomes a driver as well. He becomes a racer because racing's in his blood. And in the end, he ends up visiting the house. I'm not going to say particularly why, and I'm not going to say how this all pans out, but it's very, very cyclical, very history repeating itself. Very cool in that respect, and also very cruel in the way that the house deals with him in the end. The artwork with this book it's always very exquisite artwork. Like it's just beautiful detail, and it's like there's this beautiful warpness about it as well. Like the caricaturized the characters in it, it's like realism, but then like hyper sort of caricaturized realism with like incredible detail and incredible attention to detail as well, in the way that some of the backgrounds are drawn, and the like down to things like vehicles and stuff like that. And just I can understand why it takes so long to put one of these books out, and why there is such a delay between issues, because they're so beautifully crafted, and it's just something very beautiful in the weirdness of it. And I love this book. And there's also a bonus tale in this one, which you brought me onto this because you guys mentioned the Fleischer style when you sort of like mentioned Cuphead previously when you were talking about X-Men. But the bonus style in this is kind of like a punk rock Fleischer style thing.
Okay.
It's like a bonus strip at the back of the book, and it's like a fishing story, a very Diablo House fishing story, where a guy wants to catch the biggest fish, catch a bigger fish than another dude who works in the same office as him or whatever, you know, like these big like cigar smoking execs that go on fishing trips and whatever. And it's like it borrows from the Fleischer style, and it handles things in a very Diablo House way. So he wants to catch the fish, and obviously something awful is going to happen involving a fish and him. But yeah, no, it's pretty cool in that respect, and I do love this book. It's like a love letter to the old kind of anthology style Weird Tales books that you probably used to get from Marvel and whatever else back in the day when they still used to publish these things quite frequently, and they kind of fell out of favor a little, didn't they? Because you didn't see a lot of them for a while. But I think they're starting to make a comeback, these anthology style stories. So.
No, I, even though I've got my pristine, lovely pre-order copy, I never got around to starting it. And then as I was going to, I remember you mentioning delays, and I thought, I'll wait until I've got a chunk. But no, it does seem like it's using this anthology style. It's a good way to cover a lot of themes and topics, and sort of tie them together with a general sort of macabre, grander theme, which I think is quite cool. Yeah. And like you're saying, yeah, I think maybe one of the reasons why that trend's picking up is that a lot of writers and art teams are thinking are sort of bored maybe with the prevailing or maybe premier way of like how a lot of comic book stories are told, and they're wanting to reach further and try and do things a bit differently and try and use the medium in a more open, expansive way. So I can see why that would be happening, especially, I don't know, like in recent times where it just feels like more people are engaged in trying to explore ideas or get messages across as they deal with a lot of the more recent sort of general realities. And like it feels just like we've been noted on past episodes with the increase of like horror books, like just in the Western Hemisphere, there's a very unease going across that in general the West has not had to deal with for quite a while, and it's growing and growing and growing, and there's a general unease and feeling of uncertainty. So historically those times have led to a lot of good fiction, or more so fiction that is able to encapsulate various different viewpoints, but during different eras. So like I mentioned before, like horror generally you can usually tell it what the decade's biggest worry was by the types of horror movies that were coming out. And I think having horror and the anthology story gives you this nice sort of Twilight Zone, Tales of the Crypt Keeper, Outer Limits way to dive into like a world or like a little setting without having to like commit or invest in like these characters that you're going to read for like multiple arcs or anything. So I think we're just going to see more and more of these because they're nice. You get to do like lots of one shots almost, and it's a good way to cover a lot of themes and a lot of different story types. So I'm looking forward to getting started on it.
No, yeah, I mean, I know you have trouble waiting for stuff, which is why you don't like to buy monthlies. But if you, this is one of those books where I like that I'm made to wait for it, because it keeps me kind of like, hungry for it kind of thing. Because it's such a good book, and I just every time I like savor it. When I get one, I savor it, and I've had 3 since it started, which was like last spring, wasn't it?
Yeah, I feel like that that delivery pattern, by design or by accident, gives it an extra sort of prestige where it's not like you're reading a monthly, really. It's more seasonal. It's like episodic games, like in recent times the Telltale games, or like the 2016's Hitman series. It's like it sounds like it's leaving you waiting just enough time, and then boom, here's your gift. And it's quite
it's been quarterly.
It's cool that it can do that, because what it's doing as well is that you're sort of moving, or like other readers are sort of moving from season to season, and instead of being this touchstone of like, oh, I guess it's March, I guess it's April, now it's a case of it's autumn, and now it's winter, and your mood is going to be changing, and it might be altering how you perceive some of the stories in weird and interesting ways.
So I mean, in conclusion, I guess with Diablo House, I was just going to build on what Leon was saying, in the fact that it is it feels special. It has that prestige, and it feels special, because it's quarterly, and it's something for me to look forward to. And when I read it, I savor it. I don't rush this book at all. I mean, I don't rush any book, but I especially do not rush Diablo House, because Diablo House is special. It's like a fine whiskey. It's total love letter to those old anthology books, those old anthology horror stories, like the kind of Weird Tales thing, the kind of as I'm flicking through it now, I'm just at the House of Secrets style thing, and it's just It's always gorgeous. It's always brilliant. I need to mention that Diablo House, the team behind this, is Ted Adams is the author. Santa Perez is the artist and cover artist. And also with this issue, you've got Sean Dickinson, and this is with issue 3, sorry. You've got Robbie Robbins as well, who wrote the bonus strip. Sean Dickinson did the art for the bonus strip, and he also did a very cool looking alt cover for the book as well. Just wanted to shoehorn that in before we went too far ahead. I'm done gushing now, so I guess I'm going to hand over to Ray, because I think Ray was bursting to say something about something.
Well, yeah, because in reaction to some of the things that you guys have been saying about Diablo House, not the same content as your story here, but like we've talking about cyclical stories, and it brings to mind these like paranoid tales that we've been reading lately, because I feel like Leon has been looking over my shoulder, or he's installed some cameras in my house or something, because he took the words off my notebook and said them aloud from his side. Because we were talking about the unease and uncertainty leading to fiction that encapsulates different viewpoints. One of the books that I read from this last week, Days of Hate, is basically that. So we did speak previously about how the state of the world will be fertile ground for horror and nihilistic reactionary works. Days of Hate is one of those works. The blurb on Image Comics website is The United States of America, 2022. The loss that ripped them apart drove one into the arms of the police state and the other towards a guerrilla war against the white supremacy. Now they meet again. This is a story of a war. So the issue title page is called Chapter 1, America First, and it's accompanied by a massively bigoted quote from Steve Bannon and the lyrics from a song called Could Have Moved Mountains by a band called A Silver Mount Zion. The lyrics aren't given in their entirety on that page. The missing verse includes the words, half of us are faking and the other half are tired and scared. So this book, story by Alice Cott, which I believe is one of your recent favourites. Is that right, Greg?
Yes, Alice Cott. He's the man responsible for Generation Gone.
That's the one. Art by Danielle Zezelj, I believe. Colours by Jordi Belair, and covers by Danielle Zezelj and Tom Muller. So that title page leads into the first page where one of our heroes, Amanda, looks back on the year 2016, the year that the internet called a trash fire, and insinuates that things have only gotten worse to the point that people don't even hate on 2022, we're catatonic. She says this while staring at a giant swastika painted on the walls of a charred building where an underground party full of queer people had the doors bolted and set alight. This sets in motion a revenge plot where her and her unnamed associate plan to strike back at the most likely culprit of the fire, a white supremacist group. And meanwhile, we're also introduced to Huan Xing, a lady being interrogated by an investigator for the matters of domestic terrorism, which is just a euphemism for like police state, I guess, and interrogates her about her relation to Amanda, who he deems to be radicalized by the left. So it's an interesting book. It paints an interesting picture of the extent of the hatred on both sides. Both sides. The white supremacist crowd, as overtly disgusting as you'd expect, but Amanda's rationalization of her actions are also pretty questionable. She says, we have to do better, otherwise the world we're fighting for won't be that much different from theirs. And she says this while preparing to enact a bombing on this white supremacist group. The art style, interesting, in that it doesn't really portray a dystopian world. It's like the skies, when we see them, are clear and clean. It's got a really brushstroke aesthetic, lots of fuzzy bleeding shading, like dappled onto people's faces and building interiors. And it's never quite clear if everything's dingy and dirty or if it's just that everything's shrouded in darkness. There's really pretty nighttime cityscape shots, where we see the lights from the buildings and cars glare like it's an 80s movie. It reminded me a lot of the aesthetic from that film Drive, with like lots of striking neon lighting and all of that. I mean, in conclusion, it does feel very much like this reactionary type of work we've just been discussing, and I really think that you guys will vibe with it. And I'm not really sure. It seems to be very middle of the road. I don't know quite 100% what it's trying to say about the characters on both sides of this war, but I'm really keen to see where it's going to go and what kind of message it wants to tell. So yeah, that's Days of Hate, number 1, came out last week.
I very almost bought this, and I was waiting to hear what you said about it first.
Oh mate, I think you dig it. Like, I think, what was the other one? There was a very similar in concept, the United States of... what was that?
The United States of Hysteria.
That's the one.
Was it the Divided States of Hysteria?
Divided States of Hysteria. It feels like that in terms of message, but very different in terms of tone. And I think it's not nearly as like... I think Divided States of Hysteria was a lot more laughing and pointing at how shitty the world has become, whereas this is a lot more of a somber take on that same thing about how we're all tearing each other apart and like picking sides and not really listening to each other. And
so this just did the same job better, basically.
I feel so. I think so. Yeah.
I think I'm probably going to go out and buy it now, because what you said, it makes it sound really, really good. And also, it's one of my sort of like recent favorite writers as well. So I think I'm definitely have to go out and grab that.
It's also one of those books where I think you guys might have a better perspective on the politics than I do, and I'd be really keen to hear how you feel about the way this story is being told, because I'd like to hear your guys' viewpoints on that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I'll give that a read, and hopefully I'll have something to say about it next time.
Oh, good.
Definitely sounds like it swings for the fences. Like it seems like the allegory is like just straight there. It's like, this is what we're talking about. We're not using mutants. We're not using this thing. Blah blah blah. We're going to straight up quote Steve Bannon.
Yep. I mean, it's right there on the front cover. It's it's like black and red, and you see two hands going into handshake, but it's surrounded by like barbed wire. It's as on the. I don't want to use the word on the nose because that's kind of derogatory. It's very overt.
You got anything else that you read this week that the rest of us didn't, Ray?
Oh yeah, I did. I picked up something called The Further Adventures of Nick Wilson. So I picked this up basically on the merits of its Slacker-esque cover and the mountains of celebrity praise that are strewn all over the covers. The writer is Eddie Gorodetsky, who seems to be like a TV veteran with shows like Dharma and Greg, 2.5 Men, and then stuff like SNL and Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. So it's a bit of a mixed bag. Much like this comic. It's not really bad per se, it's just not a very strong opener to a story. It's an interesting concept. So it's about this guy called Nick Wilson who's pretending to be the man that he used to be. He used to be a much-loved superhero who suddenly lost all his powers and now plays an impersonator of his alter ego to pay the bills. First issue doesn't really go anywhere, apart from setting up an old flame who he reconnects with and a vaguely sinister enemy. I hate to sound reductive, but it does feel like it's written by an old man, and I don't really have that much to say on it, but I'm not that taken with it. But just so you know, Further Adventures of Nick Wilson.
It's a shame, because from the cover, it looked like this cool sort of this stoner type adventure type thing. Like it could have been like The Big Lebowski or something.
Yeah, I mean, it has its charms. Like the main character is charming, and it's refreshing in that he's not that much of an asshole. He's just a slacker who doesn't really know what to do with himself now that he's lost that power, and he's got this kind of skeevy agent who's trying to get him gigs at like children's parties where they all think he's pretending to be the guy he really is, but nobody kind of recognizes him. It's really odd, and I just feel like it's really muddled. Like it cuts between different scenes for no reason. I feel like the writers were trying to make dramatic cuts from his conversations with that old flame to that sinister enemy, and then flashes back, but it's not. It doesn't tie into each other. It could have easily just been two separate things that didn't cross-cut, but it left me more confused and flat than anything else. It's just interesting because it had so many celebrity quotes on it. It had like Penn Jillette and Sarah Silverman and such, and I get the feeling that it wasn't really based on genuine praise, but more just that he has these connections and they're friends maybe, or whatever. I don't know, it just felt a bit off.
I did pick it up and flick through it when I went into the comic store, but I I decided against it in the end and just put it down, and I think I did the right thing.
Yeah, I think so too.
So moving on from there, there's something that left me very flat and very disappointed because I was looking forward to reading this, and I blame you, Ray.
Hey, why? What did I do?
You tricked me into buying Under. That's what you did.
Oh, Under. Listen, all I did was I found a cool cover of like black and white artwork of a giant spider ripping the head off some dude in a sewer, and I thought, hey, Greg would like this. And then you went off on a tangent about how much you like, because it's drawn by Stocco. Who is that? James
Stocco. Yeah, James Stocco draws drew the covers for issues 1 and 2.
And then you immediately ran with it and went out and bought all of the issues up to now, without like doing any of your proofreading or checking to see whether the contents would actually suit you. And now you're blaming me?
Look, all right, it's a book about giant monsters in the sewer.
I mean, I thought I was doing you a service by bringing it to your attention, but you can throw it back in my face if you like.
I thought I was doing myself a service by buying it because, like, I've had this kind of thing. Like, it's kind of like a little side project of mine that's been brewing for a long, long time. But I've been dreaming up and cooking up stories about giant monsters in sewers. So it's a thing that I do that I like. I never. It's just something that I've been doing. Like sometimes I just do it to pass the time. It's just something that just rolls around in my head. Giant monsters in the sewer, and I think about all these cool ways that people could fight giant monsters in sewers, and it could be like super claustrophobic and super cool. And then I find out there's a book about it. So at first I'm kind of like, oh man, that's my idea. And then I'm like, this is going to be really cool. This is like something that's like should be right up my alley because it's something that I daydream about on a regular basis, for want of a better way of putting it. So I go out and I buy issue 1 and issue 2, and I find out there are only 2 issues of it. It's like it's a 2-parter made of 2 oversized comics. I believe this book was originally published in 2010, and I believe it's a French comic. Don't quote me on the original publish date. This is just what I've managed to glean. There's not a lot of information pre this new release, basically. And it was like issue 2, I think, that came out week just gone, wasn't it? Part 2.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, and both the covers are I mean, like, I can't fault the covers. The covers are gorgeous. My favorite artist, James Stocco, or one of my favorite artists, James Stocco. Both covers are amazing. You've got the cover for issue 1, which is the black and white one, which is a spider fighting a giant crocodile and a bunch of people in a dinghy caught in the crossfire in a sewer. And then you've got issue 2, which is a giant spider tearing the head off a guy wearing kind of like police armor in a sewer. And I thought, okay, this is going to be really cool. This is going to be really claustrophobic. This is going to be one of my daydreams brought to life. Oh, how wrong I was. So, I mean, it's frustrating, actually, because there's so many good ideas in this book. Like, so many really good ideas. It could have been like a really cool, really awesome hell ride of a monster book. But instead, it just falls flat. And the writing just falls flat, and it just feels really shaky and a bit disjointed in places. Like, it's jarring when it jumps from scene to scene, and there's no real fleshing out of any of it. It's just like someone's just like chucking a bunch of ideas at the wall, and none of it's really sticking. I mean, you've got this huge city, this huge fictional city that sits on this huge fictional sewer system that is like the jewel of the city, because it's such a massive, like, megalopolis type thing, that they've got to have like this like custom built amazing sewage system to deal with it. And in the sewer system so vast and so huge, you've got these like parts of the sewer system that no one's been in for God knows how long, and you've got people living down in this sewer system, and they've got their own kind of like communities down there and stuff, and they're almost separate from the people that live on the surface. And like, what these people in the sewer do is they sift through the waste and find like things that are like worse stuff, like if people drop wedding rings down the toilet and that kind of thing. And and then like you've also got in the sewer, you've got like sort of like building on like the urban myth thing of like giant crocodiles living in the sewer or giant spiders living in the sewer and stuff is kind of what this is. And you've got these like monsters living down here. And we open with a young woman who's she's like a grad student or something, and she's studying. She's a cryptozoologist, so she's studying these myths about these giant beasts that live in the sewer. But like, she's immediately kind of, she's not like, she could have been a really cool character, but they don't really do anything with her. She's immediately kind of just like pushed into the background, and then you get this this disgraced cop who now has to work as part of a security task force of sewer cops, in inverted commas, whose job it is to police the sewers because of the populations that live down there. And he's been sent down there because he messed up on the surface basically and let his partner die. But like, from the get-go, it just mishandles. Like, it's the only female protagonist in the book, and it just mishandles her so badly from the get-go. It's just terrible. Like, one of the first things that happens that has no bearing on the plot whatsoever, there's no reason for them to have done this, is she's getting changed, and she has to get changed into the sewer cop uniform to go on the tour of the sewers kind of thing with them. Like, one of the first sort of trips out that they do. And while she's getting changed, you've got a couple of janitors watching her in a security room with cameras at all different angles and stuff, like talking about how they could sell the footage for like, a bunch of dollars because it's premium stuff, and it would do really well on certain porn sites and stuff. And it's just like, so what was the point of having that in the comic? Where does that go with the story? What purpose does that serve at all to have that in there? And then from there, there's throughout the whole thing, there's like two different like attempted rape scenes that, again, like, they don't really feel like they make sense in the story. Like, they don't have a place. They just happen, and it doesn't really have any bearing on the plot for me. Like, there's no reason for that to happen at all. And it just...
It feels gratuitous.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's not... It's not in some ways. I wish it was more gratuitous where the monsters were concerned, and I wish it didn't have to have that in it. It doesn't. I mean, I don't know if they were going for some kind of B movie vibe, and they felt they had to do that because this is what B movies used to do back when, or what. But they shouldn't. It just didn't feel like it just had any place in that book at all. And I just think they completely mishandled the female protagonist, and I think they completely mishandled the whole idea that they had of giant monsters in the sewer, because it could have been so cool. It could have been so cool, and it wasn't.
Sounds problematic.
Yeah, it is. It just completely it just disappointed me on so many levels. But the covers are pretty.
So at least you'll have that, right?
At least we'll have the covers, yeah. No, I mean, I really was disappointed with this book. I was almost like, when I think I sent you a bunch of messages when I read it over the weekend.
You did.
I was incensed. Like, the minute I finished reading it, I was like, what the hell was that? It just disappointed me so much. So that was Under, and don't buy that one. Don't. You'll regret it. You will. I guess moving on from there, there's only one place we can go, and that is to the star of the show, the star of the last New Comic Book Day, which is something that we had on our looking forward to list.
Oh yes,
yes, it was something on our kind of like when we gave out our list of things we were looking forward to for 2018, and this is Ice Cream Man, published on Image Comics, and I was really impressed with this, actually. So, finishing on a positive note, yeah, super impressed with this book. So we've got a story by a W. Maxwell Prince. The art and cover is by a Martin Morazzo and a Chris O'Hallahan, and we have a variant cover by Fraser Irving. Now, the cover that I have is the sort of standard original cover. It's the ice cream man, a bunch of kids looking up and smiling. He's holding an ice cream man in the air. It all looks very an ice cream in the air. He's not holding an ice cream man in the air because that'd be weird. It all looks very very harmless and very.
That does not look harmless.
Very wholesome.
Yeah, we're seeing very different things here, Greg.
Well, no, he's just holding an ice cream in the air. Okay, all right. Okay, maybe it looks creepy and from a Pied Piper kind of way.
I get what you mean. If you just glanced at it, it would look like it's a happy ice cream man.
You glance at it and yeah.
But if you look at it for more than a couple of seconds, you'll notice that everyone's staring like glassy-eyed at this giant ice cream cone in the air, and everyone's just got like a strange expression on their face, completely entranced. Yeah, that's the word.
And then it takes on a kind of a Pied Piper vibe, and it just gets a bit weird. But at first glance, it looks harmless, which is
I don't think it does, man. You're just so you live in this very Lovecraftian world where you can see strange stuff and just be like, yeah, that's totally normal. When I saw that cover, I was just like, man, this is creepy.
I don't know, man. Up is down, down is up. Comics about giant monsters in the sewer that should be amazing aren't. And it's just
comics about ice cream men are amazing, right? It is a topsy-turvy world we live in.
Yeah. No, so I had like one line to describe this, and I don't know if you two will agree with me, but I wrote it down, so I'm going to read it out. The one line that I came up with to describe this is, "Are you afraid of suburbia?" So
yeah, that sounds about right. That rings bells.
Yeah. So I mean, if you ever watched Are You Afraid of the Dark, Nickelodeon, as a kid, I just for some reason when I was reading it, I just got Are You Afraid of the Dark like in my head, in the back of my mind. I don't know why.
I get that. There's a very sort of after school vibe.
Yeah, but then it's like Are You Afraid of the Dark for adults, I guess.
Or the aesthetic is very Are You Afraid of the Dark, where it's like this benign childhood horror, but the actual content is pretty damn horrific. Yeah,
and it's pretty like the artwork is when you open the book and you first start reading it, it's the artwork's pretty benign and pretty I mean obviously it's great artwork and it does an amazing job with the detail and everything else, and it's
innocuous, I think is the word. Like it sets off without really, like, it doesn't belie its horror underbelly immediately. Like it takes its time getting there.
It's unassuming, and but then it's threatening when it needs to be. It's like a venomous butterfly, I guess.
Do those exist?
No, I don't think they do. Which is why. But like, you know, something so beautiful and harmless looking, but actually a single bite would render you dead. Yeah.
I feel like you're just taking concepts from this book right now, Greg.
I love the way this opens, by the way. So the open with this, the ice cream man pulling up. You know, the kid on his own. Oh, where's your parents, kid? Oh, you know, I'm a big boy. Buys an ice cream, chocolate, 2 scoops, goes on home, and we're getting all this sort of narration in boxes about spiders. I know you don't like spiders, Ray. So,
I mean, who does, right?
I'm indifferent to spiders. Spiders don't bother me, but I just, from an arachnophobe's point of view, how did you find this?
I mean, the spiders are creepy just generally, but what I liked about this was that the spider wasn't really the villain of the piece.
No.
If anything, I felt kind of bad for the spider. And like, I don't want to give anything away, really, but yeah, it revolves around this story about this kid and his spider and it being the most venomous spider in the world. Ain't that something? Yeah, I mean, if I can... Okay, let me take over here. So, I'm unsure where I wanted this story to go. So, it's basically the setup for this is that it's going to be an anthology series, like the type we've just been discussing this episode, and it seems like a Cruel Fate anthology story. So for these types, I tend to prefer tales with like really heavy-handed morals or Aesops, like The Twilight Zone, or justice porn, where an explicitly bad person meets an explicitly bad end, like Tales from the Crypt Keeper. I tend not to like the cruelty for cruelty's sake type thing. And so this book, it appears to be more of an evil force festers in a quiet town and preys upon innocence, which doesn't immediately fall into like my favorite categories. But it's similar to stories like Twin Peaks, which worked really well because the sinister overtones meshed with the activities of an unusual townspeople, but we don't really get that in this book. We're introduced to this victim of the week, which is this kid you mentioned who goes out to buy an ice cream, and it turns out he's being followed by this venomous spider. And we also follow the detectives who chase a lead on a mysterious cat killer, which leads them to this kid's house. But we don't really get a sense of the bigger story at play. We don't get an idea of like what the town has done to either deserve this monster or even spawn this monster, the monster being this ice cream man. And the people who get killed in this issue aren't really given much characterization, so we don't really have an idea if they were deserving of that fate. But what we do get is this concept of the ice cream man as this like creepily polite, possibly demonic entity who warns us that there's a flavor for everyone suffering, and make no mistake, everyone is suffering. And that's enough to capture me for now. And like as an opening chapter, it sets its tone, but if not its overall concept, really, really, really well. And I'm crossing my fingers that it's going to develop a more fable-like approach to these stories to give me some of this heavy-handed moralizing that I like from these kind of things.
I mean, what I got from this, it's like the sort of bubbling, the artwork does it well as well. It's like the artwork and the story kind of work together to give you this kind of like the bubbling tar beneath the veneer, if that makes sense. Like this bubbling, sticky, black, evil tar beneath this perfect veneer of suburbia, which I guess is a lot of, I mean, there's a few stories like this that we've read. The Vision's a little bit like that, isn't it?
I mean, like you said, this is the kind of thing that's been it has been bubbling up recently because of like as a sign of the times, and in reaction to the state of the world.
But again, it's something that you used to see in the like sort of in films and stuff. You used to see this or this kind of stuff in the early 90s, which is kind of like where Twin Peaks was, as you mentioned, and it's sort of making a comeback again. So I mean, this for me is like the sweet spot between X-Files and Twin Peaks, because it's got like the X-Files angle with the way that it's supernatural in the X-Files way, but it's got the Twin Peaks angle with the suburbia thing and everything else that we've already mentioned. I quite liked where it went, and I enjoyed, you know, the kid thinks the spider is harmless kind of thing. He's been keeping the spider as a pet, but we know that the spider's only in the town. It's just, I mean, I'm going to spoil it if I carry on, because I was going in a way that was, but so I'm going to stop talking right there. But this ice cream man is this demonic force whose job it seems to be to dole out suffering and to dole out. I don't know if he's keeping the balance in some way.
Well, that's what I mean. It's not very clear what his motivations are, but I guess we'll get to that. Yeah, we'll get to that in later issues, or hopefully, or maybe we won't. But I'm hoping we will. Yeah,
I think you read this one as well, didn't you, Leon?
Yeah, well, something like in response to that, like it is an issue 1, and I frequently have this issue with issue 1s that you guys generally don't have, where I think like it's super slight. It's like a paragraph instead of like a chapter type thing. But I can see, like, mood wise, it's setting an interesting mood, and I don't think we'll get any, like, I think we're going to slowly get a bit more lore and a bit more texture of the world issue by issue. But it's a stimulating start, and I'll definitely be reading issue 2, there's a lot of things that I think it does right. I really like the color palette, these sort of almost pastel-y blues and greens and fuchsias, and it has this real like hazy suburban afternoon feel, which I quite like.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is the after school thing, and the Are You Afraid of the Dark thing, because it's like the sun's setting, kids are out buying ice cream, then going home.
Yeah, and like you can sort of feel the atmosphere, like things just don't feel, things are just out of whack a bit. I like the use of narration. It gives it a very cool sort of like I was saying earlier, like Tales from the Crypt vibe. But yeah, like there doesn't seem to be any, as Rahul's saying, like moral or the comeuppance. So I'm interested to see what they're doing, because obviously there's going to be a lot of allegory and metaphor. There always is with these things, and I definitely picked up a lot of. I mean, I say this I've only read half of the book, but definitely get a bit of an it vibe off the ice cream man. So,
yeah.
So I'm wondering if
Certainly.
that's going to manifest more one-to-one in later issues in terms of how he or it manifests, because there are like some like things that I'm not going to go into detail about, obviously, but some story elements that complicate the basic structure in an interesting way, but in a very puzzling way, considering there are no other sort of there's no other things linking it. Instead, you get some weird things happening between certain characters that make you start to question what the rules are with all this thing. So I'm interested to see if that is paid off in the next issues, or if that is hand waved as this place is just weird, man. This place is just weird. So, like, I'm definitely going to be reading issue 2 because I want to see how they go. Look, there's just something about the look and feel of this book where, even if I have some shortcomings in terms of some of the storytelling, and it's kind of, it's not derivative or anything, but it's not mega original, but it does feel like there's possibly a really solid run coming. So I'm really excited to see what crazy shit that we that can be offered up to us by Maxwell Prince and Martin Morazzo. So yeah, the thing is, I've got a lot of questions that I can't really go into, so I'll probably talk to you guys about this off mic. But I will say I do like how there are some really good uses of angle and perspective, and at times they really exaggerate and are hyperbolic in relation to size and fear. I think that's really cool. And there's this one, my favorite panel in this, I'll just say, "Fuck you, Byron." Like, that bit did make me chuckle.
Yeah, that's great.
It was a really good
that bit.
left turn comedic beat. And yeah, the spiders are the freaking worst, man. Like, I don't need this much spider in my comic, especially at the size I was reading at.
I tell you what, I don't need in my comics that Martin Morazzo puts a lot in. Filtrums, like everybody's filtrum, like the groove under their nose, everybody's filtrum is really exaggerated, and then following this, everyone is like constantly sneering with their lips raised and their teeth bared. That's weird. Like every single character in this book.
So I noticed this on the cover, and I'm in two minds about it, because I don't know if it's like, I'm taking it on good faith that it's like obviously his art style on this, but also a deliberate choice, freakiness. But then there's also a thing where it's like, that sort of makes everybody's mouths look the same.
Mm.
I think that's the point, though.
Yeah, because
everyone's got the same smile. Everyone's looking at the ice cream in the same way.
And it is suburbia.
You know, another way to describe, another thing to add to the kind of like the melting pot of vibe that I got from this actually is the music video for Black Hole Sun.
I knew you were going to mention that.
Yeah, the music video for Soundgarden's Black Hole Sun.
Yeah, I get that with the exaggerated 90s goo effect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
What flavour ice cream would you get?
Ooh.
Something with biscuit in it.
Biscuit?
Yeah, man.
You're going to get eaten by all the spiders.
If I get a double scoop of some sort of like cookies and cream, I will gladly be... No, what am I saying? That ain't right. No, fuck it. Just don't have ice cream.
You got to be careful, man. I mean, like, obviously the flavour's going to decide my misery, isn't it? So...
You don't know that yet.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's chicken or egg situation.
He might be the hero. Everyone in town might be douchebags, and he might be the hero.
I'm thinking too hard about what flavour I want now. Maybe that's the whole point of it. Maybe there's this whole cosmic connection to do with the flavour of ice cream that you order and the turn that your life will take, and it's like I don't know.
After 42, it is the answer.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's just go with Cherry Garcia, shall we?
So spider flavour.
What about you, Leon?
I would go for a nice, inoffensive strawberry because that can't be translated to anything evil.
Oh, I don't know, Leon.
Every other flavour is too risky.
Ooh. You see, you're saying strawberry now, and like.
Don't try and ruin strawberry.
The ice cream man's just kind of just lurched back into the cab, and sort of like you can see his hand quivering as he's like reaching for the door handle to go back round the front to start the engine and just get out of there.
Some weirdo ordered strawberry. It's bounce.
This guy hates himself.
my work here is done.
But yeah, no, this book I think definitely vibed with all of us, and we will be looking forward to issue 2. It's a nice palate cleanser because after I finish reading Under, I'm so bitter about because it could have been so good.
Do you think the ice cream man does sorbet?
Well, I don't know.
Just to palate cleanse you.
Or froyo.
Oh, gross.
See, I'm now like sort of drawing charts about what each thing could mean. Like what would sorbet mean? What kind of like on the astral chart on the on the map of constellations, where does sorbet go?
Oh, I guess we're gonna have to keep reading and find out.
Yeah. So I guess that closes us out, doesn't it? I think we're done with this week's reads.
I'm done with comics. I don't want any more spiders in my life.
There was one book that I did read actually that I don't want to talk about it yet because I want to do it like proper justice basically. But we have had issue 1 of Exit Stage Left, the Snagglepuss Chronicles. But I'm waiting until I get another one of those before I'll talk about that because I want to do that book justice because I enjoyed it. And I guess we go on to the pull list. So this is where we get to wax lyrical about what we're looking forward to from this week's New Comic Book Day, which is when this podcast releases, which will be Wednesday the 24th of January. And also we take a little bit of a look into the crystal ball and give you an idea of some of the things we might be looking forward to from next week, which will be Wednesday the 31st of January. So, Ray.
Right, so the only things I've got for January the 24th, or the only one thing I've got is Sex Criminals 21, which is making a comeback after I don't know how long their hiatus has been, but I'll pick that up. I've thoroughly enjoyed that in the past. That's Image Comics' Sex Criminals, written by Matt Fraction and art by Chip Zdarsky. And then for the next week, so that's the 31st of Jan, something that I was very excited about, that I spoke about in our 2017 retrospective / looking forward to in 2018 episode, Hungry Ghost #1, which is written by Anthony Bourdain. So that's something to keep an eye out for. And if you want to know what that's about, go listen to our episode number 26, where I give a rundown of the Japanese mythology behind these stories. And also John Wick #2, just because John Wick is cool.
Yes. So for me, this week on the 24th, you've got the third installment of Doomsday Clock, which has got a very nice Batman variant. Yeah, I mean, I've been impressed with this so far, so I'm definitely looking forward to issue 3. We've got Abbott, which is one of the things from our list of things we were looking forward to, I believe. And this is a book by Saladin Ahmed, who is your man from Black Bolt, I believe.
Yeah.
And we've talked about why we're looking forward to this on a previous episode 26. And this is a story about I think she's a journalist, and she's looking for the truth about what happened to her husband. And obviously it takes a supernatural turn. Occult, dark forces, and she's out for revenge. Next one is Transformers: The Lost Light, which this is like the best Transformers book, like the best Transformers book. It has been so good. There's been like a 3-part story that we've just had, which it's been mind blowing. It's great, and I just want more. So this is IDW, and it's the best Transformers book they do at the moment. So yeah, forget Optimus Prime. This is better. Buy this. There's also Legion #1 this week. So Legion's back with this is Marvel getting back on the X-Men thing again, because we've been getting like a lot of sort of like X-Men-y stuff about, and now we've got Legion #1 coming. So Legion is back in his own sort of I think it's just a short one. It's only a 5-part run.
Oh wow!
The writer is Peter Milligan, artist Wilfredo Torres, and Javier Rodriguez is your cover artist for this one. So I guess this is off the success of the Legion TV show that we had recently, and also Marvel's sort of X-Men renaissance that seems to be happening at the moment. So yeah. Other things on my list, Thanos 15, because it's Donny Cates and it's Thanos, and it's one of the best runs I've read. And then we're into the week after. So from on the 31st of January, we've got a couple of DC books that I'm looking forward to, which is the next installment of Dark Knight's Metal, which is Dark Knight's Metal #5. And we've also got the Swamp Thing Winter Special. Looking forward to that because it's more Swamp Thing. I like Swamp Thing, as I said in the previous episode. So yeah. And that's us wrapped up for this one. So, I mean, anybody else got anything left to say?
Yeah, I do.
Yep, go on.
I've got something on my pull list, but it's not a comic. But it is based off a Japanese comic. Ooh. And that's Dragon Ball Fighterz is out Friday. The 26th, isn't it? So I'm looking forward to that, and I'm sure me and Greg are going to run some sets.
We're going to run some sets on Dragon Ball Fighterz, but I need to play some more Injustice with you as well.
We do, yes, definitely we do.
So there's a note, actually. If any of our listeners play Injustice or Dragon Ball Fighterz, hit us up.
Join them online, crush them, because they're not that good.
Yeah, hit us up, literally, yeah.
Hit me up, come and crush me in Injustice. No, but like, honestly, like, you know, good friendly gameplay, bit of fun fighting games or whatever. I'm not an overly competitive person. I enjoy playing fighting games just for the crack, basically.
You both have Injustice 2 on PC, Steam. What will you be buying Dragon Ball Fighterz on?
That'll be on Steam as well.
I'm buying it on Steam, but my brother will be buying it on PS4, so I'll have 2 ways to play it online.
Covering the bases, awesome.
I'm going to be a Steam only for that one. But yeah, Dragon Ball Fighterz. It looks insane.
I am literally only on episode 8 of Dragon Ball. I am catching up because I have never watched anything Dragon Ball related in my life. So I'm going to avoid that game because I won't know what anything is. That's all.
Otherwise, you'd be chomping at the bit for a beat 'em up, wouldn't you?
Yeah, I love beat 'em ups. I'm so good at them. That would be my flavor of ice cream. Being forced to play beat 'em ups for the rest of my life. A gameplay type that I can't stand.
That's more of a Diablo House thing. That's more of you going to Diablo House saying, I just want to win at Street Fighter just once. And then like you get put in your own room at Diablo House where all you're allowed to do from then onwards is lose at Street Fighter.
That's like going into a normal house with any copy of Street Fighter. Close the episode, Greg.
Well, the difference is you've got trash talk whispering in from all angles. There's nothing you can do about it. All you can hear is...
That would be like going into a house full of you guys and playing Street Fighter.
What we're saying is you're already in Diablo House.
Ah! I don't even own Street Fighter. Not in my house.
Check again.
Every game box you open from now on has got a Street Fighter disc in.
Oh no, that's genuinely terrifying. Don't say that.
The whole Steam list.
Oh, you found it. You found my horror.
List. You look over at your DVD shelf. What? Street Fighter?
Every book is like a manual showing you all the moves and combos.
Oh no! You've got like this really nice hardback edition of something, and you open it up, and the page has been cut out. It's just a copy of Street Fighter in there. Like sunk in where the pages have been cut. Like when you hide like a gun inside a book.
Guys, this isn't fun anymore.
Yeah, let's end it there. I think we've pushed Rahul far enough, so let's just end it there. So yeah, I mean that's been Ace Comicals episode 27. You can find us on Facebook under Ace Comicals. You can find us on Twitter at Ace Comicals. You can find us on WordPress, which is acecomicals.wordpress.com. You can find us on the internet at www.acecomicals, which is kind of the hub for everything. We've got a link to everything on there. You can find us on Instagram under Ace Comicals, where I will more than occasionally post the stuff that I buy. So comics, graphic novels, anything Ace Comicals related that I purchase will end up on Instagram, and I might talk a little bit about it as well. So yeah. You will also be able to find us. We're listenable in various ways. You can find us on iTunes. You can find us. If you have a particular listening service that you use to listen to podcasts, I'm sure you'll be able to find us on it. Because I know for a fact we're on Stitcher. We're on what are we on, Ray? Stitcher,
Pocket Casts, iTunes, TuneIn, other such things. I mean, if you're listening to us right now, you'll have found one of them, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you already know. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can find me on Twitter under @Batou, so that's BATTOU. You can field questions to Ace Comicals at acecomicals@gmail.com. Field us a question, we'll answer it. The wackier the better. Ray, where can we find you?
Yeah, on Twitter at Monkeh, so that's at MOONKEH.
And Leon, where can we find you?
And I'm on Twitter at Leon Everett, LeonEverett.
Yeah, so that has been Ace Comicals episode 27. Thanks very much for listening, guys. Ace Comicals over and out.